I saw an article, Sports on Earth, David Ubben, a freelance journalist who was talking about, he went a little bit deeper dive on what's going on there behind the scenes. So we thought we'd have David joining us. David, good morning. Can you clear up the past couple of days at Baylor football?
Well, I think more than anything, it's just that it's gotten more attention than it probably deserved. You have a lot of people that have some pull at Baylor, have a lot more money than they have pull at Baylor, but are close to Art Briles. Yeah, and certainly there's people within the fan base that want this. So they're kind of pushing this, but there's a reason why you're not seeing a lot of people from that are actually associated with Baylor, as in employees of the university, people in administration, saying that they want him back. It's sort of just regents that are kind of operating on the periphery and that are sort of or not regents, sorry, boosters and donors, sort of on the periphery that don't have a lot of actual decision-making power, but are certainly pledge allegiance to Baylor and would like to see Art Briles back. I think part of that is, when you invest, millions of dollars in a program or hundreds of thousands of dollars, you want to see a return on that. And certainly the odds of getting a return on that on the field are higher with Art Briles there. So it seems like it's probably gotten more attention than it probably deserved. I don't think this was quite as close to happening as people would think, but it's such a outlandish concept to bring him back that it got a lot of attention.
Okay. Has he been fired? I clear up what his job status is, or his situation is right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be lawyers involved. So, no, he has been suspended with intent to terminate. Yeah, I mean, they've already hired his replacement. But, he's got a $40 million buyout on his contract because Baylor was not looking to get rid of him at any point. They were trying to keep him from getting away. So if another school was, they're not going to, they weren't planning on firing him, obviously, before all this happened. So, his contract, he's still got, 8 some years left on it, and he's owed every cent of that unless they can fire him with cause. And so the flip side of that is if you produce a document or you have some way that you have to file, in court that you fired him with cause, well, then that cause likely opens you up to lawsuits. So Baylor is in a really difficult position right now of trying to figure out how to sort of either negotiate this buyout down, get out of this buyout without sort of producing a document that's going to leave them open to lots of lawsuits. The 13-page findings of fact, Baylor's Board of Regents produced that from an oral presentation from Pepper Hamilton. Pepper Hamilton didn't produce that document. It's from their research and their interviews. But Baylor produced that document, and that document is not going to leave them open to being sued, even though it looks bad enough. It's sort of a perfect amount of transparency from Baylor's perspective, and that it shows, hey, we did some stuff wrong. We're not going to tell you exactly what it is, but we're going to fire our head coach. We're going to axe a couple low-level assistants and keep our staff around. But we're not going to get into any details of any individual cases to protect the victims' identities, even though we've seen multiple victims come out in recent weeks trying to get their story out there. So it's still troubling, and if you're Baylor, they're not exactly playing the transparency card.
But also, I was wondering, and I apply logic to this, and maybe that's wrong of me, but I'm just applying logic that if I'm Art Briles, do I want this to come out? Because you don't normally fire a coach. If a coach is successful, and a big-time coach can survive this stuff. I was wondering if maybe Art Briles realizes, I hope there's not full transparency or a larger report, that I'm able to sort of slip out of town eventually with a nice little settlement here.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I think it's going to be tough for him to get a major job, regardless of what else comes out. I think there's been enough, reporting, regardless of what's coming out of Baylor, that Briles does not look great in this. He's going to be really, really difficult for any school to hire moving forward. But this is where you kind of get to the central disagreement between, these people that want Briles back and the people that certainly see Briles as someone who has punted on his responsibility as a leader on campus, and that, this report, the findings of fact, isn't very detailed. But you can read the reporting and you can pay attention enough that you probably know Briles knew something. But the flip side of that, if you're sort of looking through it with green and gold colored glasses, is that there's no explicit details of what Briles actually did wrong to deserve to be fired. And so that's where you're getting sort of this idea why it's really easy for people from the outside to believe that Briles, probably knew something, probably could have done more than he did. And I think the $1 million question is, Art Briles has 2 daughters. If they were the ones that were victims of violence or sexual violence, would he have handled this the same way? I just have a hard time believing the answer to that question is yes. And so that's sort of where you get stuck in sort of agree to disagree mode, and that at some point it takes a leap of faith. I don't think it's a very big leap of faith to believe that Art Briles knew something. Maybe he did something to sort of, get his players out of trouble when they probably deserved to be in some trouble. But certainly I think he knew that some untoward things were happening. I think to believe that is a gross level of naivety.
Final 30 seconds. Is there any chance Art Briles coaches Baylor football again?
No, I don't believe so. I know you're going to need to see something, completely unforeseen and unbelievable to see that happen. And I just, I would put the percentages at 2 to 5% that this gets a whole lot further, and certainly that Art Briles ever comes back and coaches Baylor.
David, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Anytime.
David Ubben, the Sports on Earth, and also works for Fox Sports Southwest.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.